Jamie, you ready for me?
Yep.
Okay, good evening. Welcome to the Town of Mansfield's annual town meeting for budget consideration. The notice and warning for this meeting was posted on the town signboard and website and printed in the Chronicle on May 4th, 2022. It reads as follows. The electors of the town of Mansfield and all persons who are entitled to vote in town meeting mentioned in the following warning are hereby warned and notified pursuant to CGS 7-3 that the annual town meeting for budget consideration will be held on Tuesday, May 10th, 2022 at the Mansfield Middle School at 7 p.m. for the following purpose. To act upon the proposed budgets for the town's fiscal year of July 1, 2022 to June 30th, 2023, which proposed budgets were adopted by the Town Council on April 25th, 2022, and to appropriate the sums estimated and set forth in said budgets to the purposes indicated. Dated and signed at Mansfield, Connecticut, this 29th day of April 2022. Those eligible to vote at the town meeting include all registered voters and any person who is 18 years of age, a U.S. citizen, and liable to the town for taxes on property assessed for at least $1,000 on the last completed grand list. All those who meet these criteria should have already checked in with the registrars of voters and received a ballot upon entering the auditorium. If you did not, please take a moment to do so now. We ask that those ineligible to vote in observing tonight's meeting sit in the cordoned off area to your right. I will now entertain nominations for a moderator of tonight's meeting. Mr.
Good evening, Ben Shaker, 23 Olson Drive. I nominate Bruce Cluett.
Thank you. Bruce Cluett has been nominated. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, all in favor of Bruce Cluett for moderator, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. Any abstentions? The ayes have it. Congratulations, Mr. Cluett.
Thank you very much for choosing me. I'll do my best to keep the meeting running effectively and fairly. We'll start with a few housekeeping issues. First of all, I would like the meeting to appoint Sarah Ann Chain as the secretary of the meeting. So without objection, Sarah Ann, the town clerk, will be serving as secretary of the meeting. Are there any objections to that? Without objection, I appoint Sarah Ann Chain secretary of the meeting. Similarly, I would like, without objection, to appoint town attorney Kevin Deneen to be the parliamentarian. Are there any objections? Without objection, I appoint Kevin Deneen to be the parliamentarian for the meeting. The parliamentarian will assist me in making any determinations if points of order are raised or other tricky things that people might raise from the floor. Things I can't resolve on my own, I will have to rely on his greater knowledge of rules of procedure. Normally speaking, this meeting will adopt Robert's Rules of Order as the rules for the meeting. Without objection, Robert's Rules will serve as the rules for the meeting. Is there any objection to adopting Robert's Rules? Not seeing any, Robert's Rules will serve as our rules. One modification that we make is this. Robert's Rules provides 10 minutes speaking time. We have found that 5 minutes is enough usually for people to get their point across and to keep the meeting going. So I would like us to consider a 5-minute limit on speaking. The town clerk and her assistants will keep track of time. The only exception to that would be if you ask a question and town staff has to answer the question, then your clock stops. And once the question is answered, you can resume with your 5-minute time slot. After everyone who wants to speak has spoken on a motion, then you may speak a second time for 5 minutes. If you wish to speak, I'd like you to raise your hand. And because I have these lights facing me, somewhat blinding me, if necessary, wave your ballot. In terms of voting, we will be taking hand-raised votes, except for the final vote on the budget, which will be by paper ballot. That's why you have the paper ballot. But when we take a hand vote, also raise this so that I know that you're a valid participant in the meeting. So at any rate, without any further ado, as is our custom, I will ask the Mayor, Antonia Moran, to address the meeting and offer her comments and insights on the matter before us. Mayor Moran.
Not as tall as Bruce. Thank you, Bruce. First of all, I would like to thank the members of our staff who have worked very hard on this budget. They have been working on this since early December. And what you have before you is the combined work of the staff, the town manager, and then ultimately the council. I would also like to remind council members that we have a special meeting immediately following this meeting in order to formally set the mill rate. So once we adjourn, please don't leave. This has been a very interesting budget year. Unlike any other year since I've been on the council, which has now been a very long time, we have quite a bit of money, and it isn't all in the budget. So I'd like to explain to you a little bit about what our financial situation is in general. Mr. Katzenberger will be speaking to the parts of the budget that are funded by property tax and other fees that are part of our general fund. But in addition, Mansfield has had a very significant increase in other sorts of money. To begin with, the legislature adopted a new version of the pilot program, which puts Mansfield in with about 10 other towns where the majority of the property within the town is not taxable. That is, it's owned by the state, by other governments, or it's hospitals, churches, schools, etc. The payment in lieu of taxes, pilot money, which compensates to some degree communities for those lost revenues, generally speaking, have been dropping as a percentage of the town's budget. But last year, just immediately within days of our town meeting, the legislature adopted and funded this new program for these top 10, in which we get a very significant increase in funding. Now, when we did our budget last year, we were not certain that that money was going to come. And it had been talked about, it had been promised, but it had not been voted on by the General Assembly. And so we were very cautious, and we only budgeted for $800,000, and we got over $4 million. So we have not appropriated that money yet. According to the charter, there are real limits on what kinds of changes we can make between accounts that are funded by property tax revenue. However, money that comes to the town from other sources, such as state grants or other federal grants or other kinds of grants we can play around with as long as we comply with the rules of the grants. So we now have a very substantial sum of money, which in Monday night's meeting, we appropriated over $1 million, primarily for road improvements. Council has adopted a very serious program of improving the road quality in town in a much shorter time frame than was originally planned. You will begin to see some of these changes this summer. It's going to take us years to catch up, but we are really committed to improving the quality of the roads. And it's not just the surfaces of the roads, it's the drainage and all sorts of other things. In addition, somewhere in that money is also repair for the collapsed culvert on Hunting Lodge Road between Separatist and North Eagleton. The second piece of money that we've gotten are a couple of big state grants. We applied for a grant that was designed to provide seed money for the South Eagleville Road housing development that includes a substantial number of low and moderate income apartments. And we have also, and the grant also is designed to improve the safety and the aesthetics of South Eagleville Road. So we got another $4.5 million to do very major improvements on South Eagleville Road, including extending the sewer lines so that the housing development will have access. Another grant we got, and this is directly thanks to our state legislators, Greg Haddad and May Flexer, is an over $800,000 grant to do repairs to the two old town halls at the top of Spring Hill, which have our historical society. Both buildings have been in very serious need of repair. They're almost on the verge of collapse, but the cost was really going to be so great that we had really postponed even voting on it because we had to put it into context of all the other buildings like the senior center and the firehouses and everything else. So this grant from the legislature is going to fix those two buildings and save them as a permanent home for the Historical Society and its absolutely wonderful collections, most of which have not been able to be displayed because of the conditions of the buildings. The third pot of money is the federal grant. And this is the ARPA money. We received about $7.5 million, which has to be spent between now and 2026, although I think we have to commit it by 2024. So this grant money is going into social services, into human services. We just approved a section of it, $370,000 to be divided among small businesses. It's a small business grant to help businesses that were impacted by COVID. Established businesses, there's a formula and an application fee. In addition, there are other parts of this ARPA money which you will hear about as we appropriate it as we go down the road. So there may be some things you are really concerned about that you will not see in this budget, but you have to understand that we're working on several other sources of money, and you may see them come as we proceed. There are a couple of principles we've been operating under, and that is that we really want to get some of this money into the hands of local families and the community. We also want to do some major road and infrastructure repair. In addition to all of that, we did get the expanded pilot this year. So you will see in the budget that Mr. Katzenberger is going to present to you some expanded services long overdue that we are now able to fund. So that's the backdrop for the budget you're going to see. Now, as the staff, the town manager, and the council reviewed its budget proposals, these are the values and principles that we follow. They are the guiding principles that came out of the town's vision plan and its plan of development, plan of conservation and development. It's called Mansfield Tomorrow. It's been around for almost 5 years now. You should be familiar with it. One of the, I taught state and local government for 20 years, and one of the things that always amazed me is that people have no idea how much their local government did. And so one of the things that I've always loved about budgets is you get to see all the different things, and here is a partial list of some of the things that Mansfield provides. And we've accomplished a lot in the last year. COVID, of course, has dominated a great deal of our decision-making, but we have run the town as one of the best-run towns in the state, as we always do. So we've done some new things. The local government academy, which Mr. Aylesworth started, was a great success. We have started seriously working on affordable housing. We also have really moved forward on multifamily housing at Four Corners, some of which will be affordable. The other real serious achievements is in the area of human rights. The most visible of them all, of course, is the mural at the community center. But we have also engaged in very significant collaboration with the university on a number of things. And there is more to come. There may still be some friction here and there, but we have real hope that we can improve this relationship for a long term. We are undergoing a facility study. Right now we have TSKP architects looking at all of our facilities and their uses to see, help us come up with some kind of a design. We have very old, outdated, and inefficient and poorly functioning buildings that we need to deal with. But this is not the end. Of course, there's a lot more ahead. So here's the spoiler. We are going to do a lot, and we are really improving town government, and we're even cutting taxes. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Kochman.
Good evening, and thank you all. It's a pleasure to be here again in person, and thank you all for coming. What I'm going to do quickly is go through the budget, although I'll only speak for a minute or two, and then I'll turn it over to Susanna Everett from the Board of Education. The board president, Kathy Ward, and Kelly Lyman, the superintendent, are at the Teacher of the Year event in Hartford. I'm sorry, Teacher of the State Teacher of the Year event. So they're unable to be here, but Susanna Everett kindly agreed to step in. So I'm not, partly because I can't stand reading PowerPoint slides, and I even hate it more when I'm being read to. So I'm certainly not going to read them. These are essentially the same slides that were presented last week at the last public hearing on the budget, and have been, and will also available online. The one difference is at the end of the presentation, after both Susanna and I have finished up, I will then read 4 resolutions for consideration, and that's when we open it up. And that's, of course, the most important part, is not hearing us, but listening to you. This is your voice and your opportunity, so that's what means I'm going to go through things quickly. So a municipal budget, real quickly, it's 2 things. It's a planning document. It tells us what it helps make concrete, puts into practice what our values and objectives are. Much of the funding education, roads, public safety, public services. But it's also more than a policy document, because it also, once approved, however modified. Once approved, that is what we live with. That's what the town manager then allocates, and that's what we live with throughout the year, absent some particular changes. Some of them are, we've been fortunate the last couple of years, it's additional income, such as through pilot, as the mayor said. But any significant changes, increases in taxes would call for, or increase in spending rather, not necessarily taxes, would call for a town meeting. So this is not only a guiding document, it also sets out where the town will spend your money. The mayor's already mentioned much of this. Two things I'd like to emphasize. One is this main third bullet point, pay-as-you-go capital plan. And that was a decision made probably roughly 10, 12 years ago, which is that instead of borrowing for mid-sized projects, such as the purchase of equipment, vehicles, similar expenditures, which has the immediate advantage of you don't have to put it all up front, but of course has borrowing costs. The town council and the then town manager agreed that we would plan as we go, or pay as we go. In other words, for these purchases, we would fund them directly, even if it took a year or two or three. So we have not, for years, been bonding projects of mid-expense. And again, that's, I suppose, an economic discipline and saves us money. That's one of the things. And another aspect as well is, as the mayor mentioned, which we'll all hear a lot about over the next couple of years, is we need what to do with the rest of the municipal buildings. We have a new school that will be open, if not September, it'll be open this year. And that was, in fact, is the signal achievement, I think, for the town over the years. But we also have old buildings, none of this is going to surprise you, as well as renovations possible in the middle school. That's a future goal. This is simply shows where the money, where we're spending it, which is the schools in Region 19. We don't have a, once since the Region 19 referendum was passed, for the budget, that is the amount we are statutorily obligated to pay. We do not have discretion on that. The town and the public schools is above, and as is usual, and this is an example of not only Mansfield putting its values first, but also much of it, given how the state funds schools, school expenditures combining Region 19 and K through 8 are approximately 65% of the budget. That's, and that is consistently every year. This is adopted by the town council, which simply means this is the budget we have presented to you. The town council doesn't adopt the final budget we do, or we all do. Hopefully tonight. And this simply gives a 3-year overview. I am now going to turn it over to Susanna, who will go through the Board of Education, and then I'll come back and finish and go into a little more detail.
Good evening. I'm Susanna Everett. I'm the Vice Chair of the Mansfield Board of Education. I'm very pleased to be presenting to you the Board of Education adopted budget. As Peter and Tony mentioned, I'm here in lieu of our Board Chair, Kathy Ward, who is at the Bushnell tonight celebrating our very own Kim King, who is a Connecticut teacher. So I'm going to just start with our guiding principles that we use with the board as we adopt our budget. Our proposed budget focuses on advancing our whole district efforts to enact our core beliefs as defined by our new strategic plan. Our proposed budget also supports our huge transition to one elementary school, while maintaining class sizes and our programming, as well as resources to support all of our learners. Our budget also provides additional resources to support both students and staff as we continue to address the impact of the pandemic. And our budget also aims to continue to engage and support staff in building a student-centered system that leads to deep learning and support of the whole child. I am going to dive into some specifics. You can see here that our overall proposed budget for 2022-2023 is 0.2% less than last year's budget. You'll note on this side of the slide that our sort of major cost drivers. So the first being that our obligated salary increases are over $58,000. That's an increase. But as you'll see in a minute, if we were not consolidating to one school, our increases for salary would have been significant and would have resulted in an overall budget increase of 4%. Our other increases include transportation. That's a combination of items there. Having several of our students in specialized programs. We have an increase for a shared custodial supervisor position. But our decreases are around employee benefits, our net reductions in staffing for MES, which some of you might not realize is named for Mansfield Elementary School, energy savings, building operations, and we have fewer students attending magnet school than we had in previous years. As I mentioned, just to go into a little bit more detail, our Mansfield Elementary School consolidating to the one building has resulted in multiple staffing adjustments. Our reductions are into administrators and also in certified positions as well as non-certified positions. We have added 3 positions as well, but it results in a net change of 11.7 positions, a decrease of that. In terms of the savings that we're realizing in the budget, we're consolidating to our Mansfield Elementary School. As I mentioned, salary is the main primary savings, $833,000 $833,757, and associated medical benefits. We are also realizing significant energy savings and costs for savings in building operations as well. And I think one thing that's important to consider is we are realizing these savings this year, and these are savings that we are going to realize every year moving forward. So this is a savings we will continue to experience over time, had we not consolidated to the one elementary school. Just very briefly, not to get into too much detail here, but just wanted to point out our health insurance spending over the last years. We've really maintained our spending in health insurance, which is phenomenal, thanks to our very thoughtful practices of our staff to maximize our insurance model. We have continued to save money over the last 6 years, and we're actually spending less now on insurance than we were in 2017. And just to put the school board budget in the larger context, over the past 10 years, our average budget increase has been 1.54%. And finally, our capital fund requests for the town this year are our usual requests, which are technology and maintenance. One is replacing this wonderful lighting in the Mansfield Middle School auditorium, and second is a combination of technology requests. And those are listed. And that's the presentation for the Board of Education. Thank you. I will turn it back over to Peter.
Thank you, Susanna. So we'll go into details of the town budget. All right, so this is the budget summary, which the mayor already presented. And it's a combination of a reduction in the mill rate of 1 mil, but also significant enhancements. By enhancements, we mean getting the roads back quicker, more money spent on roads, more firefighters, and we'll also provide a large majority of EMT services for the town to improve both response time and overall service. And then continued investment in public safety with the addition of a trooper, and then organize our groups of services like Parks and Recreation. This is simply the types of taxes we get. I think in this here, this shows where the revenue, where the money comes in from. And this is, I think, this chart shows just how important intergovernmental money is to the town of Mansfield. And that's composed of almost exclusively, largely 2 elements. One is the pilot, now the enhanced pilot. As the mayor mentioned, just 2 fiscal years ago, we were $8.2 million. The pilot was perpetually underfunded and at times grossly underfunded compared to what it was supposed to be. Mansfield and a number of other towns with the enhancement for towns eligible, which of course we are, has significantly increased it. So we've gone from 8.2 to 13.1 million, which is estimated for this upcoming fiscal year. And then the larger the rest is taxes, what we all pay, property taxes and other taxes in the town. Just this shows the trend over the years with, in case you can see, with the state aid being in green, the brown taxes in related, and then dark green at the very top of all of it. So again, it's a visual presentation of how taxes and state aid have developed and changed. It's been pretty consistent. The grand list, which grew modestly. There was a small decrease in real estate, if you see that. That is the commercial real estate. It is not personal, so it was certainly generally home prices or home values have not dropped. It increased somewhat. And this, of course, is during COVID. This is simply a visual display. As I mentioned, pilot will go up to $100,000 increase, but still at 13.1. Educational cost sharing, which every town participates in, and that's for business, a fairly significant amount stays flat. Now, here are the expenditures, or the proposed expenditures, what we're going to pay for. There's a couple ways of looking at it. This is the pie chart shows where the different buckets where we put money. For those, the light brown over there, 40% is for the Mansfield Board of Education. That's the Mansfield Schools. 8, Region 19, 11 million is the bright yellow. And then the next most significant include public safety and public works. Townwide is at $4.5 million, and then public works at 5.5. So this shows how the services are divided up. There is some shared services, which ultimately saves the town, I think, a fair amount of money and improves the efficiency of services. So the numbers are not precise in this category, but they're pretty close. By cost drivers, these are increases. Why are some items costing more? Why are we paying more for essentially what we had last year? And these are the primary ones. I don't think that surprise people, particularly both in benefit wages and benefits, and then inflation, which will started to hit. Hopefully, at least right now, but it's above 7% in the Northeast region. So obligated, 2 categories, obligated and discretionary. Obligated means the town is contractually, has made commitments contractually to union pay arrangements, union bargaining, contract salary and benefits, debt service, which is when we do bond, as well as energy costs. Discretionary, this is what we're gonna add, this is what we propose to add. And that includes, residents, a new resident state trooper, additional firefighters, and additional parks and recreation support. And any agency has been hit hard, particularly in town, besides the schools, of course, most significant is parks and recreation because of both the importance of that, particularly during COVID, and providing opportunities that otherwise couldn't do, but also because of understandably the drop membership in the community center, which has been an issue for a number of years, but in part because due to the revenues from Silver Sneakers. The town council has been fully supportive and has continued to provide additional support. The Parks and Recreation has an aggressive plan to reduce the deficit and to eliminate it hopefully within the next couple of years. But that is one area to see. So we have 1.28 million in discretion, in required, obligated increases, and then the proposed service increases. So this is overall net increase of 768,000. MERS is the municipal retirement system. Once a town, which we did many years ago, agrees to put municipal employee pension benefits and retirement into the system, then the costs, the percentage that we are required to pay is not set by the town, it's set by MERS. And our options are one to fund it, or two, to take a long-term process and not recommended, would be to withdraw. So that's what we see that, and that has been an increase for a number of years. Okay, so the fund balance, this is a lot of good news tonight. So whatever. This bullet point and the next one, the most important, which is simply this is surplus revenues, money left over after we have spent all after the expenditures. And this is added to the fund balance. In some sense, although I don't think the finance director will like the term rainy day fund because it really isn't, but in some sense, it's an emergency fund as well. It serves as unallocated reserves, money that if we need to, we can spend ideally for a long-term project or in the need for a fiscal emergency. We haven't had to do that, but it's good to have that balance is very good. And also, it reduces the town's cost to borrow money. The more money we have, the larger the fund balance, the less the capital markets will charge us for bonding. This is always important for every town, but it's important to us now as we engage the start of the borrowing for the new school, as well as the Mashpee Middle School roof, and then future improvements or buildings for town buildings. And starting in 2009, when there was a very significant decision made, which coincides exactly with, I think, Bill Ryan, who passed away several years ago. Bill Ryan's election to the council and the determination which the council kept through numerous mayors and our town council people to increase, to really have a significant fund balance for the reasons you suggested. And from 2009 at 4.2%, we're now at 17.2%. We don't necessarily have a plan to grow it much beyond that, but it is much healthier and much better than it was. And this is, I think, one of the contributions and achievements that town staff and Board of Education, all your officials have worked hard to get. So the service improvements, again, to use that, this is what we propose to do to add. And public works, again, is much of that is additional staff to, as well as other, I don't know if double, but to make significant inroads into our road improvement project, to move, ideally to perhaps pick up the speed by maybe 2 times. And we've heard from people, we know we all drive on these roads, and some of them have deteriorated more than we can. And that's not a reflection on anything but the amount of money that we have allocated, and we're gonna allocate more. Police staffing will have 1 more resident state trooper. That person may have a significant role in addition to normal duties in the schools, but that's not yet determined. And then you can see just the police staffing. And that's just what we laid out. So one thing, there are the town has 3 funds. And most of our time tonight is spent on the general fund. And that's where most of what the budget is, that's where the money, the taxes and tax money goes into, as well as intergovernmental and a few other expenses. So that's where we budget from. The other 2 funds, one is a capital non-recurrent fund, which is a god-awful name and not intuitive. But what it is, in a sense, the capital non-recurrent fund, which we'll talk about in a minute, is money that's allocated by the town, much of it from the general fund. But it's not new money, it's not old money, it's money, well, it can be old money. It's generated from the general fund, it's a holding tank, in essence, as to fund capital improvement projects that have been approved. So, because that money just may approve a $5 million capital improvement project, doesn't mean that money's all going to be spent that the next day or the next week or the next year or 2 necessarily. So the capital non-recurrent fund is a holding tank, a legally required accounting tool to set aside money that will then be moved into the 3rd fund, the capital improvement project. And this is where we invest in major projects, including roads and others, typically not the daily operating expenses. And you can see where the investments that we put. This is simply a pie chart of minutes ago. The revenues, much of it, and this is where, so the revenues, where does the capital fund get the money to do it? It comes from the general fund. Again, and to some extent, both the non-recurring and the capital fund are accounting requirements, accounting funds required by both legal and by accounting standards on how we spend and allocate capital funds. So the capital non-recurring fund provides 82% of the capital fund revenues. All that means is that the general fund is 82% of the capital fund. The money we'll spend on these larger projects comes from the general fund. There's also other sources of revenue, which you can see there, but the large majority, 80%, a little over 80%, is contribution once approved by all of you, by all of us, approved and sent into by the town budget. Then the money allocated will then go into the capital non-recurring fund, which will then fund. But 80% of the money comes from. And this is just goes over some of the areas of public works, which is where we made a decision. We've been advising you for a while, made a decision that we were going to make a major investment this year. And perhaps next year we'll see, hopefully, on our roads. Not the only decision, but that's what much of it will grow. And okay. And this is, so the capital non-recurring fund, the bucket that holds things, much of it will come again from the contribution. And this also shows where we get additional money. And we must use the fees and the Keep Park grant, which I think it's been consistent around 179, but for many years, as we know, has not provided a significant source of income to Mansfield, or presumably any town, but you do put it into the capital fund. And what are we going to do with it? It's going to go to the capital fund. That's its purpose. holding tank or holding bucket. And this is a more granular breakdown of what we're gonna do, where we're gonna find proposals on what we're gonna do with public works. The large majority is directly related to road work, but it also includes water. And then, and as the mayor mentioned, some of this is going to be funded, much of that's going to be funded, not from upcoming taxes, but from the surplus from last year's pilot, as well as ARPA funding. And these are other projects that, if approved, will be part of the capital fund. And again, as you can see, none of these, and they really shouldn't be, none of these are reoccurring expenses. Salaries, things like that do not go into, typically do not go into the capital fund. These are one time in the sense of the community center repairs will be done, but of course, will be done in the future as well. But the point is significant non-reoccurring expenses. And this is public safety and then general government total. So community services includes open space and park, as well as various aspects of the community center, community development, economic development. We put in more in than we have in the past. And this summarizes one of the issues like Gretchen, which is the Parks and Recreation. And the slight surplus, one thing we hope to do is to improve our scholarship program, which is a way either where people, families, low to moderate income either pay less or perhaps don't pay at all for various programs. We've had this for many years. We hope to increase it a bit. Not surprising, with COVID and a number of economic factors, the need is grown. So debt service is again the borrowing. Now, as it notes, starting next year, we're paying for the new management, both the middle school roof, which was already starting to pay for already, much of it, for it, and then the elementary school. And this shows where the debt service is. And where for fiscal year, we've historically had extremely low debt service, and a lot of that again is the pay as you go, but also this is to avoid debt unless absolutely necessary. When is it necessary? No town can, I know of, at least no town around here, can build a school, a major project without borrowing, even with significant state support for the schools. And both the Mansfield roof, so what you see here in the increase, which is anticipated years ago, once the school was approved, is the fiscal year 2023. This is our debt service, how much we pay. Now, what the note up above is annual debt service costs are projected to be a little less than 4% of the overall operating budget. The recommendation by accounting standards of municipal government is that you don't go higher than 10% of your annual budget. So even fiscal year 2022, and what next fiscal year, when, as you can see, this debt service goes way up, we're still less than half of the maximum recommended. So our debt service is certainly going to increase. It's no surprise, but it will still remain well within recommended allowances. Inflation, and roughly 7%. That. So this is important. So what does this all mean? Let's see, for the average house, the assessed value which is 159 because it's only 70% of assessed value, average 2028. The 1 mil reduction, annual decrease for the average at the median is $160 a year. And the chart to the right is simply to see what was town manager proposed versus what the town council was adopted. And this summarizes, based on average 4,859, based on average residential tax, where does the money go? As you can see, 58.8, 60, but 58.8 goes to education. And you can see the other costs. We will have, it'll be small, but we will have a fund balance reserve, meaning we will modestly increase the fund balance surplus that will be remaining after the money is spent and allocated. And this is how we compare to other towns. Based on fiscal year 2022, the fiscal year we're coming to the end of, we had a mill rate of 31.38, with the average of the towns you see being at 35.73. Wellington has a slightly lower mill rate than we do, but other than that, and then we're pretty close to Ellington. But other than that, and top, you can see the difference. So we remain by mill rate one of the lowest mill rates in the area. We'll enhance public services, modest tax cut, and preserve some, a number of, most importantly, we're not only sustain services to the town, but also enhance them as described. We will keep and slightly increase the guaranteed fund balance. And we will also continue our practice of budgeting and paying for medium-sized investments such as vehicles and things through not through borrowing, but through saving and then paying it. This is actually really important because the amount of work that they have done, and like everyone, towns work, like any of ours work, is in addition to all the extra stress and work done posed by COVID, the challenges, opportunities, and excitement of the new school. And I've only begun to appreciate it doesn't sound like much, but the adoption of a new fiscal and new financial systems software, which is a major project. And they've done this, and they've also, most importantly, worked and provided us these services and this budget. So I have to thank them. Okay, so I'm going to read the 4 resolutions, then I'm done, and maybe a relief. And then turn it over to you. When we don't vote on them or discuss, I'm just going to read all 4 of them. Resolved that the proposed general fund budget for the town of Mansfield for fiscal year July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2023, in the amount of $48,677,870, which proposed budget was adopted by the council on April 25th, 2022, be adopted, and that the sums estimated and set forth in said budget be appropriated for the purpose indicated. Resolved that in accordance with Connecticut General Statute Section 1051, the proportionate share for the town of Mansfield of the annual budget for regional school district number 19 shall be added to the general fund budget appropriations for the town of Mansfield for fiscal year July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2023, and said sums shall be paid by the town to the regional school district as they become available. Resolved that the proposed capital projects budget for fiscal year July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2023, in the amount of $4,293,950 be adopted, provided that the portion proposed to be funded by bonds or notes shall, at the appropriate times, be introduced for action by the town council, subject to a vote by referendum as required by section 407 of the town charter. And finally, resolve that the proposed capital and non-reoccurring reserve fund budget for fiscal year July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2023, in the amount of $3,546,780 be adopted. Those are the proposals. And thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kostenberger and Ms. Everett. This is the part of the meeting where citizens can speak. And as I indicated before, if you wish to speak, raise your hand. I will call on you and you'll come to one of these two microphones. We want to make sure that everyone in the room can hear you. That's why we have these microphones set up. You'll have 5 minutes. During that 5 minutes, you may do one of three things. You can make a general comment about the budget. I'm in favor of it. I think it's not very good, whatever. And it's important to express your opinion to your fellow townspeople. I will say that if what you want to say is not about the budget, please don't say it, because according to the town charter, this meeting can only consider the proposed budget. It can't consider anything else. There are many other issues affecting our town, but the appropriate venue for that would be the public comment session of the Planning and Zoning Commission, the Town Council, the Board of Education, etc. So please make sure your comments are relevant. The second thing you may do is introduce a motion to amend the budget under consideration. According to the town charter, the meeting may lower or raise the budget of any program. Now, in your packet that I hope you picked up as you came in, on page 26, you will see a list of the general fund programs. Any of those programs, you can make a motion to increase or decrease any of those programs by a specified dollar amount. And town staff or public officials can assist you in making your motion so that it is in proper form. Don't worry about the form. Just say what you think should happen in regards to one of those programs. The capital fund budget programs are on page 28. Again, you can't get into the weeds of minutia. You can't recommend that the library buy 3 new sets of encyclopedias. You can make a motion to increase or decrease the public library program, but that is the level at which the motions can be made at this meeting. This meeting is governed by the town charter, and on page 11, paragraph 6, the town charter procedures are indicated as to what the meeting can do and can't do, and what happens if you approve the budget, what happens if you refuse to approve the budget. So without any further ado, let me ask for comment from the public. Yes, sir, Mr. Holgren, come forward and state your name and address, please.
Good evening. I have a question about the budget.
Name and address, please.
Lon Holtgren, 404 Woodland Road. I have a question about the budget, which is a little bit rhetorical. And that is with the increase in improvements to the roads as budgeted. You've said you're increasing the road budget and the improvement of roads. My question is, will the improvements be made so that you're following the town's complete street policy, which you adopted a few years ago, such that the streets are more available to other users than just vehicles? pedestrians, bicyclists, people in wheelchairs, whatever. So that's my question. Will the road improvement projects include and pay attention to the complete streets policy?
Thank you. I will ask the public officials and town staff to provide that information, starting with Mayor Moran.
As Mr. Hultgren knows, the town council supported the complete street policy, but it only applies to new roads. And we haven't, other than the roads right around the square, we haven't built any. So what we're really talking about is repair. We had a road pavement study done a couple of years ago, and we developed a strategy for repaving at that point. The problem with that study was that it didn't look into drainage issues. And when the Public Works Department started to examine the surfaces of the roads, they discovered that there were a number of places where there were significant drainage issues. And so they have been working. We've spent an awful lot of our money, not just on resurfacing, but on drainage. Which is much more expensive per mile. But we are continuing to be committed to this complete streets policy if we can. One of the things that's in the money that we have appropriated out of the surplus pilot from last year is a striping program. We've asked Public Works to put a white stripe down on the sides of the roads. And the council's goal in pushing that was to make the edges of the roads more apparent, but also to create a small, safer space. I'm not saying a safe space, I'm saying a safer space near the shoulder for pedestrians and bicyclists. It's not a solution that's going to meet everybody's needs, but as a person who has run into a rock on the side of the road myself at one point, I know that our roads cannot be, in most places, can't be widened very much beyond where they are. The problem with the complete streets is that our roads are narrow and old. Mr. Carrington told me that he had just surveyed one of our streets, and the prior survey for that street was completed in 1753. So, our streets are based on probably deer paths turned into Indian paths, turned into dirt roads, turned into asphalt. So it's something which we have kept as a goal, but have not been able to achieve yet.
All right. Comment from some other person? Please raise your hand. Yes, sir. Go to the mic, state your name and address, please.
Good evening, Brian Coleman, 26 Center Street. We have a $60 million budget before us tonight. I want everybody to keep in mind that over 30% of that budget is provided by government revenue, roughly $23 million. That makes the Mansfield taxpayer vulnerable to any federal and state tax cuts where they may have to cut revenue. I think that's very important to keep in mind. So I would like to make the following motion, keeping in mind reoccurring expenses. I would not like to see a lot of reoccurring expenses in this budget. So I move to reduce the general fund by $700,320, keeping in mind the reoccurring costs. Secondly, Susanna just showed us the Board of Education budget, showing a savings of $1.3 million. But the budget itself only went down mere $42,000. So I'd like to make the following budget motion to move to reduce the Board of Education budget by $631,390. This amount will help serve the debt service at the new school at the Southeast School site on 134 Warren Road. Thank you.
Would you stay at the mic, Mr. Coleman? The motion to reduce the education part of the budget is program 6001. Your other motion was a general reduction, an overall reduction in the general fund. And I just want to consult whether that is in order or whether you have to specify which programs would specifically be reduced. So hang on. Mr. Coleman, the mayor and town attorney agree with me that your motion must address a specific program. As your second motion did, the reduction in the Board of Education. So you want to reconsider that?
Okay, so what do you need about the Board of Education?
The Board of Education is all set. That's program 60001 on page 27. So that part of your part of your motion is valid. I'm concerned that your comment about bottom line reduction in the general fund is not allowed by the charter.
I'm looking to I'm looking for a reoccurring clause.
All right, please bear with this. Well, your fellow citizen has made a proposal, and we're just getting into a form that conforms with the requirements of the charter. The charter requires that individual programs in the general fund and capital fund can be increased or decreased by a dollar amount, and he's working on that. So let's just bear with it. Well, let's wait to see what he comes up with. So just to be clear, if there is a change in Public Works, that would be program number 300000. Thank you. Counting beyond 3 is getting increasingly difficult for me.
Okay, for now, I'd like to make a motion to cut, Department of Public Works by $254,990.
Okay. Do I hear a second to that motion? The motion is to cut Public Works, program number 30000 by $254,990, and program 60001, education K through 8 by, how much was that? 300 and, I have 631, 390. Okay. State your name, please, for the record.
Charles Osberger, 472 Middleton.
Thank you very much. So now we have an amendment on the floor. Discussion from this point forward should be on the amendment. Once we vote on the amendment, then we will be back to the original motion, which is the Appropriation Act consisting of 4 resolutions. Mr. Coleman, would you like to speak in favor of your motion?
Yes, on the Board of Education, we had $1.3 million in savings on school consolidation, and we only had a $42,000 decrease in the Board of Education budget. We just took on a large debt service this year, bonding out for the new school on Warren Hill Road. Take some of those savings and service our debt. As far as the DPW, reduction in DPW, I would not like to see a drainage crew hired. I'd like to see more subcontracting. I think subcontracting can help us with cost savings as well as expediting the speed that the roads can be repaired.
All right.
That's all I got.
Thank you very much. Would someone else like to speak on this amendment? Mr. Shaken.
Hi, good evening. I'm Ben Shaken. I live at 23 Olson Drive. I'm a member of the town council, as is Mr. Coleman and Mr. Osberger. I'm speaking on myself right now. Against this motion to amend the budget in these 2 ways for the following reasons. First of all, to address the Department of Public Works, the council has proposed at the town staff's request to increase staff in the Public Works Department by 2, which is 2/3 of a full drainage crew. You may have seen drainage work happening on our roads over the last several years. One of the things that the Public Works Department has discovered as they have gone to repave roads is as they go to reclaim the pavement underneath what would be the new pavement, the drainage is old and is crumbling. And those of you who travel around Hunting Lodge Road will know that a culvert across Hunting Lodge Road recently became unstable and partially collapsed, and that road is closed. And as a result, every time we go to pave a road, or almost every time we go to pave a road, we have to replace the drainage under that road. And that requires staff. We contract with private contractors for most of our road paving, but our drainage is done in-house for a variety of reasons. I won't go into all of them, only just to say that our collective bargaining agreement with our public works staff does not allow us to contract for work that they might otherwise perform, and drainage is one of the things that they perform. So contracting for that work, it's not guaranteed certainly, but might create a significant dispute with our union representing public works staff, which can end up in arbitration or court. And so that's why the council supported hiring staff to do this work rather than contracting for it. Secondly, on the Board of Education, I can't speak to their budget in significant detail. If there's a member of the Board of Ed here who wishes to, perhaps they can. But I will just say that that what I see in the Board of Education's budget as an individual is an investment in education, something that Mansfield's been proud to do for as long as I've lived here, which is most of my life. And while we are seeing significant savings in consolidating the elementary school, just as the Board of Ed promised would happen when we did it, there are increases in costs that go along with doing business every year. Most of the board's increases are coming due to obligated increases to things that they've they have to do, whether we vote for the budget or not, things like increasing teacher salaries, commensurate with their union agreement, things like paying for things that are more expensive today than they were a year or two ago. And so I'm happy that the Board of Ed budget, in light of all of these increased costs, is actually reduced a little bit. And I think it ought to stay at the level that the Board of Ed has proposed. Thank you. I urge you to vote no on this motion.
Okay, is there someone else that would like to speak on the motion? And I would note that our public officials on the stage are bona fide residents of Mansfield and have a right at this point in time to participate in the public discussion. So anyone want to speak, please come to a mic.
Mr. Shaken basically covered it all. Those of you who live on roads where trees have been cut will know that we have expanded our public works crew to enable us to deal with the dead and dying trees on the road. The last 2 years, we have had to expand public works in order to deal with changing conditions, and this new crew is part of that effort. So I also urge you to vote no.
All right, other, yes, please come to the mic.
Tom Devine, 28 Thomas Drive, grateful father of 2 now 11th graders who went through K-8 here in the Mansfield schools also. I've had the chance to watch the work that our unpaid school counselors and the town counselors do. I'm so grateful for all that they handle. The opening presentation gave us an impressive list of different things that the town puts to. So I'm here especially to appreciate how important this work is and how I'd like to see it funded, and urging my fellow citizens to vote against or to vote down this motion. We're in a particularly interesting and critical moment for our schools. I'm really proud of how our town has agreed to consolidate schools, and this was a really difficult decision that I think we put a bit in peril should we adopt this motion. It was hard for our town to let go of 3 beloved community schools. There's a real sacrifice in that. So many of us loved having our students in schools closer, and yet, as someone who has spent my lifetime in education and studying and researching in education, it seemed clear to me, and I think it seemed clear to the town by significant margins, that it made sense for us to take advantage of the opportunities that state funding, that teachers all in one place, that budget savings we're going to make. And so I'm grateful we've done that, in part because it allows us to do what the goal was, to maintain services. Folks who are working really hard on our school council are telling us that if we adopt this budget, through the hard work they do month in, month out through all their meetings, that if we adopt this budget, we are able to say to future generations, that quality of schools our town is known for, that quality of schools that has kept our home values up, even in the Great Recession, because people wanted to move to this town when the prices got better, that we can promise future generations that they will get the version, the appropriately updated version of that quality education. We can keep faith with the same kind of public education we were given growing up in this town. And I worry that to adopt this resolution breaks faith. It breaks the kind of bond across generations that our town is known for. So I am so grateful for what this town has done for my daughters. I guess I ask that we try and do our best. We are not asking for an increase, even though we know we're living through inflation. Even though we have zeroed out budgets in ways that have hurt increases for salaries in past years for teachers, I do not begrudge salary increases in years when their costs are going up also. So I'd like to encourage and urge all of us in the room to please support our schools for all they have done, for all that they continue to do for our values, for our home values, but for our values as a town. Valuing education, valuing youth, and valuing the future. Please vote no on the resolution. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm looking for further comment from the audience. Yes, please.
I'm not as tall as Tom. Jeanette Picard, 72 Timber Drive. I'm a member of the Board of Education. I'm also a public school teacher in another town here in Connecticut. I feel so lucky to live in this town. My husband and I moved here over 30 years ago when I was very young because of the schools here in Mansfield, because of this town, because of its diversity, because of its commitment to its citizens. The budget that has been presented to us continues that commitment, while at the same time being incredibly fiscally prudent. To have a budget that allows us to decrease our mill rate while still providing the stellar education that we provide our children, a nationally recognized educational system that provides the services that our town has and that takes care of our citizens at a time when we are still vulnerable. As a public school teacher in a middle school that is also 5 through 8, I can tell you that our children are going through a very difficult time and need the support of their teachers and need the support that we can give them as a town. That includes supporting our schools, that includes supporting our recreation department. But another part of what makes us a town is that we take care of the structure, the foundational underpinnings. Part of that is public works. We have a very fiscally prudent budget that has been presented to us. We have a responsibility as citizens to provide for all the members of our community. And I urge you to defeat this motion. Thank you.
Okay. Would, any further comment from anyone? Would you come forward, ask your question? You need to raise your hand, and I recognize you, and you come forward. But let me just say that there doesn't appear to be any further comments, so I'm going to call for a vote. All right? The motion before us is to amend the budget by reducing the Board of Education program number 60001 by $631,390, to reduce the Department of Public Works program 30000 by $254,930. All those in favor of this amendment, raise your hand. All those opposed, raise their hand. The motion to amend the budget is defeated. We are now back to the discussion of the budget. Appropriations Act, consisting of 4 resolutions that Mr. Kotzenberger introduced to the floor. Is there further comment on the budget? Yes, please come forward.
J.L. Zychek, I live on 100, I guess you could call it B. I'm on a wing of 100, Wormwood Hill Road. Overall, I approve the budget. I'm concerned, 2 things. The pilot program, when I've served on Board of Finances in the past in other towns, we're at the mercy of the state, providing the money. Mid-term, mid-year, the money was pulled. So just to be aware of that, because sometimes revenue is not always a secure thing when it comes from the state. That's number 1. Number 2, I'm fairly new in town. I really haven't read the audit report, but I would like to. And what is the recommendation for the percentage that the town should have for a fund balance and for the non-recurring fund? And I see it's at 17.2. And, how does that affect our bond rating? And is it in the AA plus range? So those are two questions. But overall, I think it's a good budget. The town that I moved from, they're increasing their mill rate. I think most budgets are. So I'm very pleased with the work that was done on the Board of Ed and on the, I guess you don't call it Board of Finance here.
The town council is the equivalent of the Board of Finance.
I know you have a charter, which, the town I came from was state statute. And, when we would vote on a budget, we had to vote on the bottom line. We weren't allowed to talk on the line items. So, so these two votes that we just did were the line items and not, it was the Board of Ed's complete budget.
Right.
Not-
The charter calls them programs, but
Yeah,
yes,
so
I know.
the charter. Okay, so those are my two questions.
All right. First of all, the first question was one that I don't think can be answered. It was, are pilot funds sometimes subject to revision by the state in the middle of things? And I think the answer is sometimes. The second question was, what is the recommended fund balance and what is our bond rating? And how does the fund balance affect the bond rating? And I would ask Mr. Kotchenberger to come and address that.
Thank you. I just have the first point. I mean, that is actually always a good point to remember. It's also been, it's part of Mansfield. That's been an issue with Mansfield. It has been for my whole life, will be for years later, that we are subject to everything. Towns in Connecticut are creatures of the state. Our powers are no greater. We have no constitutional rights as a town where we get what the legislature ultimately decides, consistent with the state constitution. So yes, we always should be aware of that, but it's also been a feature this possibility. I think right now, and it could change, that we are certainly an amount on firmer footing than we've ever been in many, many years, maybe 2 or 3 decades. And secondly, at least both the state finances today, but also the commitment they made to a few communities on pilot can be changed like any support can. But it's significant, and I think, we should act as we have been, which is, of course, used to be money, but, conservative would be, for example, what we were last year. So it is a feature, but it's one that we've had to deal with, that has been a challenge forever. On the second issue, which is, I'm gonna do 2 things. This is what lawyers do. I'm gonna say what I think, and then I'm gonna turn to the expert. But I don't think there is on fund balance. There's not a specific amount that the auditors don't go into that we're suggested to have. As we noted, it has been significantly increased from 4 to 17%. Its exact effect, I'm not sure, I'll turn to the finance director, but I'm not sure it is a precise calculation because it depends on the bonding markets and factors other than simply what we have in our reserve balance, how it affects the bond ratings we get. I'll turn it over to our finance director from Maine, who's worked so hard on this.
Good evening. Can you all hear me? So one of the questions was what is our bond rating? A very strong bond rating, which was actually we just went through a ratings review last week. And so our bond rating for the town is AA long-term and SP 1+ for short-term, and that's through S&P. So we have a very strong bond rating for the town, for the size of our town and the size of our budget. The fund balance of 17%, meaning we have a fund balance policy. We were striving for a target, we were striving for that target. We reached 17%. If S&P took notice that we made it towards our goal, and they also took notice to the fact of the trajectory in which we made it towards our goal. So it does play in, just like many other different factors that play into their rating of the organization. I would akin it to your credit rating. there's certain things that are taken into effect as it relates to your personal credit rating. Keep that theory in mind when you think about all the things that make the town run. Also pilot funds. That is also taken into consideration based off of the strength of the rating of the state that is providing those pilot funds. So again, the bond rating with S&P took place, I believe it was last week Tuesday. The weeks are merging together. Last week Tuesday, and we fared out very well. We maintained our rating. We've had the same rating for a few years, and it is attributable to the way the town is managed and all the other different aspects that play into the budget.
All right. Yes, sir. Come to the microphone. I'll call on you next, okay?
William Jordan, 243 South Eagleville Road. I'd like to speak on the overall budget. I think it's a good, solid budget. I believe it's a budget that supports our infrastructure. The town, I'm a resident of 61 years in this town, and this is a great town. And over the years, we've had some bumps, but this is a budget that's going to carry us through, support the current infrastructure we have, which all of us love. We're all fat and happy. And in doing so, it's going to fund for years to come. So with all that said, I would like to move the question and vote on the budget.
All right. Is there a second on that motion to move the question that is close debate on this? Ms. Buck? It has been moved and seconded to close debate on the Appropriations Act consisting of 4 resolutions. This is not a debatable motion. However, it will require a 2/3 vote. So I will call for the vote. All those in favor of closing debate, please raise your hand. All those opposed to closing debate, raise your hand. All right, it's more than 2/3, so we now move on to consideration of the Appropriations Act consisting of 4 resolutions. As the resolutions are on the screen, I am not going to read them again unless someone would really like me to. All right. The time has come then to mark your ballots. Yes or no on this 4 Resolution Appropriations Act. It is suggested not to fold your ballot. This is not a raffle. We have 2 ballot boxes here. Please mark your ballot, proceed down the aisle, place your ballot in the ballot box, and return to your seat. Thank you. to vote brought their ballot to the ballot boxes. Can I have quiet for a moment? Quiet, please. Has everyone who wants to vote placed their ballot in the ballot boxes? All right, we're going to count the ballots now. So you can stay for the totals, and I will announce them as soon as they are ready, at which point I will ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting. Count the ballots are coming as we.
I would say.
Here they are. All right, I have the totals here. There were 84 votes yes, 2 votes no. The budget is approved by the town meeting. Before we adjourn, the town council will be having a special meeting here, correct? Yes. And the purpose of that meeting is to set the mill rate. So you can also stay for that if you want. The meeting, this meeting, I would ask for a motion to adjourn. Christopher Paulus moves to adjourn. Who is the second? William Jordan is the second. All those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed, raise your hand. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much for coming. I would personally like to note that for over 300 years, the citizens of Mansfield have come together in a public meeting to discuss finances and other matters. So we are part of a long tradition, and I thank you for coming.
Such taxes shall be due and payable July 1st, 2022 and January 1st, 2023.
Do you wish to speak to your motion?
I think it's a good mill rate.
Anybody else wish to speak to the motion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. All right, we have a unanimous approval. Is there a motion to adjourn? Moved by Mr. Osberger. All those in favor of adjourning